So,
Yeah,
hi Matt, thanks for joining me.
it's really a pleasure. Thank you so much.
So, I've been speaking with a lot of people who are more my age and at that end of their careers. And I've known you
Mhm.
since you were a young boy and have watched your
Very
talent
young, yeah.
grow. And even though you're young and beginning your career, you've put in thousands of hours, I suspect, if we were to count them. You've put in your 10,000 hours. So the talent is there and the experience in terms of the practice is there with your music. You're remarkably talented. You play several instruments. So of course I follow you. We get to meet occasionally and interact. But when you said on your, I think it was a Facebook post, you said, even if no one talks to us, we'll just talk to ourselves. And then you had the
Hmm.
camera on and you got rolling. And it sparked something so lively in me because much of my own career has been about just having a beginner mindset, having a bit of audacity and grit to just get started and get going. And that moment that you created just delighted me so much. So I thought I would reach out and ask you if we could have a chat so I can catch some of that beginner mind fire.
Yeah,
So
it's really,
tell me
it's
about that
really,
idea.
well, it comes from having, I mean, you can understand this, certainly having a desire to want to express yourself, even if no one else is going to listen, very much just like I have something I want to say and I feel like that it deserves to be said, even if nobody else hears it. In the case of that, it was collaborative. So it was I really wanted to hear. He's a good friend. His name is Demir. He plays in a band called Seabath, and they're also Trini, local
Mm,
music. Really, really good. I would recommend them. But he's become a very close friend, and he has the same kind of feeling frustrated that he can't share his view. And so it was
mm.
natural for us to work on that together. And it was really fun. And I want to do more things like that. This is kind of in line, just like you said, the spirit is very much in line with that. So I thank you for giving me the opportunity to have this conversation with you and me. And like you said, there's an age gap, but I think that thing in common is really what, you know, connect us in
Yeah.
that way,
I
right?
think beginner mind is timeless, right? And it was interesting as well. I'm curious to ask you about your first EP, 72 hours.
Hmm.
Those that where did that inspiration come from? You said it
So,
was something you written when you were younger, and then you
so this song, I wrote that song in over the pandemic. I had a lot of free time. So in 2020, I wrote that music. So all of the instruments that you hear are pretty much the same as they were then. And when I went to university, which was 2 years later, I had difficulty socializing because I went to Spain. So they don't speak English there. And I speak Spanish, but it's not fluent enough that I felt like I could be myself comfortably. And that was very frustrating. And that song, it's called 72 Hours because I wrote it on my second day in Spain. And my first day was miserable. And my second day was even worse. And I was trying so hard. Like I felt like I was really putting my best foot forward to be extroverted and charismatic. And I didn't feel like anybody else was listening to me. I felt very isolated. And so the song, I wrote it really frustrated, really angry. I wrote it initially, it was very sarcastic. It was like, well, if the first day went this good and the second day went just, by 72 hours, I'm gonna be having the best day of my life. But it was entirely sarcastic, and bitter, right? But what I love about that song now is that I recorded it when I came to England. So I'd moved from Spain and I was no longer in that place mentally. And I was able to look at the lyrics and perform it in a happier state of mind, right? Because
Mm.
I was miserable there and here I'm not. And so I think you can actually hear in the song, the beginning is very closed, like quiet. The actual song itself starts off like kind of like you're dialing in a radio. So it starts really, really quiet and very kind of the state that I was in, hidden and sheltered, like I'm hiding. And the voice is also really quiet. And then at the end, it gets really, really loud. And I think it's more of a proclamation of like, I made it and I'm okay. And I don't have to be, I wasn't where I was. And I think you can hear that in the song. So I'm very proud of that song.
Yeah, and that's a kind of a narrative arc, a transition that
Hmm.
writers make with their characters. And so, and I was so proud of you when I heard the song and to see you taking the next step because you've been a student of music and practicing and participating in your high school band and doing things like that. How did it change for you, even in Spain when you got to England? How did it change for you? Did you find other musicians that you could collaborate with? And did that help you come out of some of that feeling of isolation through the
Even
music?
in Spain, I was able to find musicians, but it was a few months after. So like that song was truly written in the first week, right? That I conceived that idea. But by the end of my time in Spain, I had a very decently sized support circle of musician friends. I was in this band, the university's band, and I was the only drummer. So all of my feelings of questioning my worth didn't weren't there anymore because I was the only drummer. So even if I couldn't communicate with them, they needed me. That's how I felt. It was really my way to be like, it's okay. Even if they can't talk to me, I know that I feel needed in this
So
context.
music is very
Um,
much that a bridge between languages, that musical
yeah,
universal
100%.
language. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
Yeah,
beautiful.
it was great. And I have so many friends that don't even really speak English, but that I could play music with, and it feels like we're talking, you know?
That's fantastic. Yeah. And that moment that I saw on your Facebook page when you said, let's just talk to ourselves, let's just start. As I say, it's a spontaneity and a spark within myself, and I think most creatives could identify it. And I have read about beginner mind, a sort of a mindfulness mindset. I'm a meditator for many years as well. If you had to capture
Hmm.
that moment or that feeling in yourself, I think it'd be really good to keep recreating that for your whole career, for your whole life, What are your thoughts in terms of
Yeah,
your like matching that frustration with your external ambitions and worthiness because you're so deserve a shot.
that's a really good question.
Mhm.
I feel like the challenge for me at this point in my life, since I'm so young, is finding a space to be creative while also having a job. You know
Practical
what I mean?
matters, right? Yes, I
Yes,
do.
yeah. And
Yeah.
and I mean, of course you do, and also how it can eat at the other. One
Mhm.
can eat at the other, and one can suck all your creativity away, and vice versa. Your
Yes.
creativity can be something that takes away from your actual act. You know what I mean when I say actual work.
Yeah, yeah.
And I know that's something that I don't necessarily have the answer to, and no one does, I think. Um, but I suppose it's just like when the creativity sparks, I try to make my environment one that is conducive to being productive as quickly as possible. Uh,
Mm.
you know, because I know that if I don't do it now, I'm not gonna have time to do it for the rest of the week. You know what I mean?
So you take action quite quickly.
Definitely,
That's
and I work
fantastic.
fast. Do you?
Yeah, fantastic. I do. I mean, I don't need a spark to come. I have a discipline as well. But if an idea comes, I take action right away. I write a note to myself. I always, because you don't want those moments to slip by. They're so precious, really, and they have tremendous value to the creative work and life. Yeah.
I think it's like one of my greatest little pleasures is when you're just out and about and an idea comes to you, and then it's not that though. It's the way that you try to capture it before you lose it in a social situation. I think is
Yes,
like one of the greatest little like joys that I have.
yeah. Is this a kind of a slipperiness when you
Because
say
it's
the
like,
way?
okay, so in my case, it will be, oh, I have a vocal melody. I'm not just gonna start singing into my phone in front of my coworkers
Why
or
not?
in front of my friends. So
Yeah,
it's like, where do you run off to in the little corner to go and do it quickly without making it? I just think that it's very like it feels it's a part of my life, and I'm proud that it is. Like
it's
when those
part of
things
your
happen.
identity. It's like your identity as a creative as well. I mean, I think my friends know that of me. If we are walking somewhere, a park, a museum, an art gallery, that I sort of wander off. As they leave her, she's,
Yeah,
wandering again. And that's usually when thoughts are formulating, ideas are germinating. I want to be, in that little bubble, even though you're out in public or with friends. Absolutely. I totally
yeah,
recognize
yeah.
that.
It's very it's fun. It's fun to do that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I'm wondering, you know, of course, I'm aware of AI. I use ChatGPT. I use Canva. So I'm not a complete technophobe at my age, as many of my peers are. But I'm wondering what it would be like to start a career in this environment. Of course, there's so much brouhaha, so many pros and cons. There's, so much being written and said about AI.
Hmm.
What is your general feeling about it for your own creative life in terms of your generation? I mean, you're not even starting off as a native to AI, but you would have been a
Hmm.
digital native like my son, right? So you guys
Yes,
started
yes,
out in a world, yeah, you didn't know a world without it, in other words, the way I did.
yes,
So I'm
yes.
just curious, like, what's your sort of mindset or perspective about it?
AI has come, I think it's going full circle. I think when it was introduced, it was the hottest thing, and people liked it. People were interested. Like the layperson thought it was fascinating and could see its potential. And I think the longer that it has been pushed, the more people just don't want anything to do with it.
Mm,
From a marketing and like creative point of view, I think people are sick and tired of anything to do with AI, especially all generations, I would say. Young people, but I would say, even between my age and your age, just don't want to be seen with it.
yeah. Kind of AI slop is becoming the sort of go-to reference I think about. A
The
lot of it is starting to
Yes,
show
yeah.
itself. So the cracks are starting to show in what it can do. But I did see online one of the platforms, one of the less popular names, I don't remember, but they did announce that they would accept AI music, but
Mm.
they would not monetize it. And I thought that was a fair decision, you know. Now you are multi-instrumentalist, so you're playing pretty much everything on your tracks.
Yeah, I played everything, I wrote everything, and yeah,
Yeah.
performed it and what you hear is me, all me.
And what about your art? I noticed the same art
Yes.
across your three
Oh,
tracks.
this is such a great opportunity to plug my friend. His name is Benjamin.
Right,
He at Beren Guitars TT on Instagram. He
right.
is local to Trinidad and he's a luthier. So he builds guitars from scratch. He does everything. He cuts the wood, he hand paints, he installs the parts, he sets it up to play. He's so great. He's my age, like young, and great artist. Just such a great guy. I love him. I'm so happy that I have this opportunity to talk about him. And
Mm,
he very kindly extended his services to do the artwork. So the ideas for each art were mine, and he just did them all by hand. And we have them framed at home. I'll show you next
yeah.
time.
Next time I
And
visit.
yeah, yeah, they're great. I think they're very, very cool. He really brought my ideas to life. And all of the art is actually intertwined in the sense in the concept that I was trying to
Saw that,
have.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we'll share the links for anybody who does tune in and wants to follow it up. I this idea of ekphrasis where you you look at things and you look at art in particular and you write, reflect on it
Hmm.
is a
Hmm.
part of my practice, is something that inspires me so much. And in a sense, that's kind of that collaboration that you had going on with Benjamin there. You can really see the song in the artwork, which I thought was
Yeah.
interesting because sometimes the artwork is quite abstract and it's like, it doesn't really relate to the song, or it's a kind of a clickbaity kind of idea.
Hmm.
So what is your overall sort of, would you say, what is the sort of aesthetic you're going for in your own work now? If you sort of just take Matt, the artist, the creative, the not the guy earning a living, just that person we
Hmm.
talked, that part of you, that identity as the artist. What is the aesthetic that you're interested in voicing right now or sharing right now?
Hmm. I think you all the lyrics of the songs that I've written thus far are very personal. It's like kind of like a journal. I'm sure that's a very common, practice across everything, right?
Being a
Um,
songwriter, yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. But it's really important that I want it to be like a song that has pop appeal, which means when people listen to it, they can relate themselves to it without losing what it means for me and keeping it ambiguous enough that there's interpretation. That's really important with my songs. I think that's the thing I strive to do the most from a lyrics point of view. And then melody, I listen to a lot of I listen to a lot of K-pop for melody inspiration because yeah, well, not so much now, but I did over the pandemic a lot because I don't know what they're saying. And because I can't
Uh,
understand the lyrics, I can just listen to the melody objectively. And that has informed the way that I write melodies too. So I try to make it poppy, but still not too poppy. And then
yeah, it
music
has
from
kind
music
of
point of
a,
view. Go ahead.
there's a kind of a, I couldn't quite find the words for it, but your your lyrics kind of, they don't fit a formula,
Yeah.
even though they are personal and you can hear that poppy vibe in the melody, but the lyrics aren't formulaic. There is a bit of a hook. I remember the song. Come back to it. I remember it. I can sing along. But there's not that sort of formula. You know what I mean? How would
Yeah.
how would you point to that in your own work, from your point of view, the creator point of view?
So the music that I grew up listening to was a lot of like from the 2000s, alternative rock, and punk rock. And these specific bands used to do this thing they would just kind of journal. They would write all their thoughts down with no cohesion. I've read some of their journals, the songwriters that I grew up listening to, and it's just like a book of sentences. And I think because grew up listening to that, just automatically, when I started to write my own songs, I started to approach it the same way. So it's not even when I write these songs, it's usually a compilation of my thoughts that I just scrambled and then I try to stitch them together into a narrative that makes sense to that scenario at the time. So let's say if I was angry about being in Spain, but then I was happy about being in Spain, I wrote two different journal entries, and then I could look for a line in both that I think could work well together, and then make something from that. And so I think that's probably why it ends up sounding a little like not formulaic. It's like lots of different thoughts, and also another thing that they did because it's just scribbling. It's not the same amount of syllables all the time, or a sentence might bleed into
Right.
another.
Exactly. That's yes. Right. So your process is, you're quite aware then of what you're doing.
Yes.
I didn't want to articulate with too much analysis, but you are very clear on what you're doing. I love that. There's a kind of artistic rigor to what you're
Mhm.
creating. And I think that will bear fruit for sure. Which comes first then? It sounds like lyrics come before music, or do they kind of
No, the
find a
lyrics pretty much always come last because
real?
because I want, yeah, most of the time with this song, the lyrics came way, way, way after. because I don't know what story I want to tell. Like the state of mind that I'm in when I write the music. For example, with this song is pretty happy, but lyrically it's
Mm.
not. And that was an interesting contrast that I thought it would be interesting to do. But initially, obviously, I was in a great mood when I wrote the song. It's a happy song, upbeat in a major key, very danceable, very kind of groovy. And then when I felt upset, I was like, what if I took this and put it on that happy thing to make it something more human, I think.
Mm. And that sort of contrast, you were going for that sort of contrast between the two. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's exciting. So what are you listening to like right now? What's on your playlist today, sort of thing?
that is a great question. I haven't really been listening to too much music, but
Is it
I've been
very
so
eclectic?
busy.
I think your taste used to be quite eclectic. Is it that, or are you sort of
Yeah,
tuning in?
I love like I told you, I like K-pop, but I love Japanese music. I actually listen to more music that's not in English than music that is in English or instrumental. So there's just no words on it at all. There's a guitar player I really like from Japan. His name is Masayoshi Takanaka. He's from the 70s, but it's a kind of like jazz rock sound. It's and he there's no singing, but he sings with the guitar in that sense. He plays melodies. Sometimes he'll do covers of like jazz standards and famous songs, but all through the guitar. Another guitar player I really like is his name is Marty Friedman. So he lives in Japan, but he's from America. Same thing. It's all instrumental, and he's articulating like a voice through the guitar. And actually, that has inspired my vocal writing as well in a strange way. Like I'm writing vocal melodies based on listening to a guitar singing. You know, um, that helps me because something that this is kind of a broader conversation. I know we don't have that much time left, so I'll get to it quickly.
No, that's okay.
Singing in an accent
Mm.
is interesting because in the past the cultural expectation is to have a American accent. I don't have the most trendy accent in the world, but I certainly don't want to sound like I'm a foreigner. I don't want to sound like I'm doing British bands in the 80s and the 90s would put on a fake accent and then they would chart. And I don't think that's so much more with the way that music is just everywhere now with TikTok, every music, every country, you can access it.
Yes.
But I think to music accent helps if there's no words, you know?
Say that last line again. The
I
accent.
was saying listening to it, like it helps me to not worry about how the accents if I'm not even listening to music with words in it. It's just like a guitar singing. And then I'm like,
Yes.
okay, I can inform my melody to that. There's no bias of the kind of accent that they're putting on.
Right. Yeah, I love that idea because other than, I mean, our soca and calypso is written in that sort of nation language, that dialect,
Yes.
right? Um, and intentionally has that real, deep callaloo stew flavor, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
But but if you are working through another genre, a global, as whether even if it's pop or any other genre, rock, we have some local rock bands. I remember Orange Sky,
Hmm.
Nigel Rojas, and those guys, influenced maybe by
Still
reggae
going.
and those fusions. There was Mungal Patasa did some nice fusion work as well. So how do you identify then this local voice, this your identity as a Trinidadian voice? I love that you brought that up with the accent. So how will you write it into the by fusing the music with other styles? Will you write it into the lyric in terms of how you pronounce your T's, water instead of water?
Yeah. I mean,
You know,
I
is
so
it something you think about intentionally or?
definitely because I don't want to sound like I'm not myself. It's hard. I'm now starting, I don't really have that such a breadth of just of music. So every time I work on a new song, I try to not sound like I'm as Trini as I could be without feeling like while it still serves the song. But yeah,
Yeah.
I do try. And I think that lots of local bands, because we're friends with lots of local bands in Trinidad, um, try to keep that. The band I mentioned in the interview, you should take a listen. She sings completely in her proper Trini. It sounds great.
Share
Like,
some links with me. Share all the links you've mentioned when you have time. Share the links and I'll post them as well. Yeah,
but
that's
it's
amazing.
weird because the bigger that you get, the more scrutiny you might run into. That they're like, that's not a Trini.
Yeah.
Um,
But you know what you need to keep doing though. This is if
yes.
not that you're here for advice, I actually wanted to catch a spark off of you, which I've just been feeling so excited listening to you. But if it's one thing I'm learning and learning again, is that moment that you said, even if no one is listening, I'm gonna start again. I'm
Definitely.
gonna do it. And that beginner mind moment. So don't worry about the scrutiny or if you get bigger. The best way to ground yourself is to remember that moment when the
Mm-hmm.
newness sparked and you just went for it no matter what. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
what that hunger, it's a kind of a hunger, you know, and as we grow in our career, as we get older, that hunger, that fire is something that everyone is wanting and looking for, and it's really within us, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's so exciting. I'm so happy that you shared about that voice, finding your own voice. What do you want to share? I'll give you the last few minutes to just end on any note that you want to. What do you want to tell us about yourself or your work?
I wanted to go back to something you said actually, and maybe
Yeah.
share it with you after this purely for conversational, because I thought it was
Yeah,
really
go ahead.
interesting that
Go ahead. We're here. Even if we go
mentioned
over the
that you mentioned that you will have find yourself being inspired by art to write.
Mhm.
And I'm much the same with music. And I can show you an example. Maybe we can like put it somewhere in the
Yeah,
newsletter of a song that
yeah.
I wrote that is entirely it's instrumental, and I wrote all of the parts informed by the visual elements of the piece of art. It's a very like chaotic, lots of different colors, lots of different patterns and stuff. And I that is like to your point, that is also like one of the most fulfilling artistic practices that I've done is just write this song purely informed by what you see in the art.
Wow, that is so beautiful. And what a great serendipity that we seem to connect on a lot of things. I wonder if you could, how would you share that? Do you have it like as a recording or?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's one of the ones I have not released yet, so I can give you like a piece of it, and then I can give
Oh,
you the
so
art.
we can have a preview, a sneak peek.
Yeah, it's very chaotic, but when you see the art, you'll understand why.
Yes, okay, great. So if you share that, I will put it in as a clip on the conversation. Matt, that this has just been so exciting. I'm glad I followed my feeling to just reach out and say let's chat, even though it seems a bit odd for because we're at such different ends of the spectrum. But as I said, the creativity is ageless, it's timeless, and it really comes for me when I heard that spark of just doing it, just taking action, not worrying about all the trappings, the metrics, the audiences, all the things that can come and do come. And I wish it for you, that you can
Thank
grow
you.
into fulfill your ambitions. But that spark, that's the power right there. So thank you so
Mhm.
much.
Yeah, well, thank you for this. This was wonderful. I hope we can do this more.
Yes.